Alright, Bostonian Plays Video Games, Fallout 4. We're going to be exploring Concord and Lexington. It's been a little while since I picked up this game. And, as you can see, I think it's a beautiful game. It's what got me into Fallout because, I played, on PlayStation 3, I played BioShock and BioShock Infinite, mostly. And two of my favorite games of all time. And it wasn't until PlayStation 4 and Fallout 4 that I was introduced to this series. I've since played the other games, with the exception of Fallout 1 and 2. And I enjoy them all, but I do, I live in Boston. And this was just a fascinating game to explore. And, not knowing the lore and the other dialogue box, I know a lot of people got some problems with it, but for me, I fell in love with the game, and I fell in love with the lore, and oh man, really, yeah. I can't transfer anything. Oh, I'm going to be walking around like an idiot. Okay, yeah, I can drop stuff. Okay, good. Nuka-Cola. Okay, so apparently that's going to be good. So, but I'm also doing this thing called Letters from a Quarantine. Letters from Quarantine, and, basically gives me something to do every day, and, I'll be trying to upload them in the afternoon. That way the day's news is kind of come and gone. I mean, it's only about 2:45 now, so I'm sure there's a lot more stories that can develop, and that's just the nature of this thing where there's a lot of mystery surrounding it, and, there's a lot of things and a lot of measures that the government can take, but they're standing by on them, or they don't want to freak the population out, or anything like that. And as far as the... Oh, it's a fucking synth, bro. I'm getting smoked here. Well, how do I do this shit? Should I just run away at this point? Jesus, they're on me. Alright, well. Alright, who's this dead guy over here? Yeah, come on, Piper. Help me out, would you? Alright, here we go. Yeah, have a seat. Institute pistol, nah. I think there's a lot of questions up in the air right now. Number one, what is this thing? And number two, why the reaction? And usually, when you hear stories in the news, you're kind of like, all right, should I take this with a grain of salt, or does this kind of be blown out of proportion? And, I think on this one, it's like, okay, well, is there information that isn't really being released? The population really hasn't gone through anything like this before, so you do have to be somewhat cautious the way that you go about, certain things. So, if you go from, shutting down bars one day, and then there's troops on the street the next day, it's like, whoa, what's going on here? And, you also have to be careful about particular announcements because, people, as they did last week, are flooding the grocery stores. And, now that seems to have calmed down a little bit, given opportunities to restock and stuff like that. But, I'm hearing 45 days before we even see the peak of this thing. And what is that? And what is the experience going to be like, for the next 44 days. Right now we're announcing cases, and, this state has it, and that state has it. But if the situation obviously gets even more dire than that, where death rates start going up, and, more measures are put in place that are a bit more drastic as far as, mandatory quarantine and curfews, and organizing grocery trips. And right now France, is requiring papers, which you haven't heard since Nazi Germany. requiring documentation to be out on the street and what you're there for. They're also going over, if you do mandatory quarantine and you do paperwork like that, also, like, brief exercise periods where you can be outside. So it's I got to tell you, it's a little crazy, but this is the thing, and this is, again, letters from a quarantine. I'll be trying to do this once an afternoon, certainly for the next 45 days, depending on what's happening. Look at this. This is a cool design, huh? This is a mod somebody did that, basically just different houses in Concord. There's not much to it, but the lighting and the set deck is pretty cool. A lot of people, unfortunately, are reacting right now either that it's not that serious, or that they shouldn't, they don't believe it, because, a lot of people in my generation, they've been lied to a bunch. And then once you get out of the hysteria and you look back on it, it's like, oh, I was lied to, I was duped. And I don't think that's necessarily the case right now, or else we can't put that as a first response, at least in my opinion. And, the other thing is, I know a lot of people are upset that the bars are closed and stuff like that. And, I understand that, because, our routines, our way of life, once they get, kind of disrupted, it's frustrating, but, the fact of the matter is, I think we need to be adults here in this situation and just hunker down and not worry about if we feel happy or whatever, or how we feel. But, we really have to be looking at this in an intellectual way. And what I mean by that is just keeping our heads about us and being able to make well thought out decisions and not irrational decisions, so yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who I work with and stuff like that, and our work has been shut down too. I'm gonna, get some alcohol and, go down to the weed store, and yeah, that's cool for a 2-week quarantine. That isn't really a threat, but I always thought this was going to be about 3 months long, and God only knows what can happen in 3 months, as far as, what we're going to be forced to do. And certainly my advice would be, don't sit in your house drinking for that whole time, because then you're not really going to be useful, and you're not going to be making great decisions, and you'll be even more paranoid and more anxious than you would be if you weren't. So yeah, that's it. That's day 2, letters from a quarantine, from Fallout 4, from Concord, Massachusetts. Take care.